Hey gang, Private Jack here. Welcome to part 3 in my series on how to rig up an aircraft. So, basically where we left off is we just finished placing all the bones. Now what we have to do is we have to go through and we have to assign the control surfaces to the bones. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use vertex groups and an armature modifier. So, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here and go into object mode. We're going to select the spinner, come over here to the object data properties panel, click on that, and we're going to add a vertex group for it. And the way that we get the armature modifier to work with the vertex group is the vertex group has to be named the exact same as the bone that's going to control it. So here I'm going to right click, I'm going to hold down the control key, right click on the group name, and I'm going to type in here BIP spinner. Now it's important that the actual case of the spelling of the vertex group is exactly the same as the bone itself. So BIP spinner's all lowercase, BIP spinner here is going to be all lowercase for the vertex group. Now I'm going to click here on the object modifier and I'm going to add an armature modifier, and here in the object I'm going to select the actual armature name that is going to control it. Now you see I've got two armatures here. The reason for that is I have another model sitting off on another layer that is the same model, but it's rigged up and I want to use it for later. Anyway, make a long story short, this particular armature is the armature.01. So coming back here, click the spinner again. I want to select armature 01. Now, if I select that bone and go into pose mode now and rotate it, nothing should happen. Rotate on the y-axis, nothing happens. And why is that? Well, the reason for that is that I've assigned everything correctly, but the actual object itself has not been weight painted to that bone. And the way that we weight paint is we go into edit mode on the actual object, select the entire object because the entire object is going to be controlled by the bone. Come back here into the object data property panel, and I can either assign the weight here in the vertex group, right here, weight 1, that means 100%. All I do is click assign, and that will now weight that particular object to that bone. So now when I go into pose mode and I select the rotate on the y-axis, the spinner is going to move. And it looks like we might have a little bit of a problem with the prop, but we'll see that in a second. So let's set up a prop. I'm going to select the prop, plus the plus key, and this is prop left. BIP prop left, ensuring that my cases are exactly the same as what the actual bone is. BIP prop left, BIP prop left, cases are the same. Go into the modifier, add an armature modifier. Make sure I select the correct armature. Now I'm going to go into edit mode for the actual prop, select the entire prop, and come back here into vertex group and assign 100% to the prop. Now the other way I can weight paint is I can go into weight paint mode over here on the mesh menu options and go into weight paint, and here you can see that the entire prop is red. Well, the reason why it's red is I've already assigned 100% of the weight to the actual prop bone. Now if I select the other prop, go into weight paint mode, it should be entirely blue, and what that tells me is it's cold and there's been no weight assigned to it. Now to weight paint, down here I can select, go into vertex mode, select all the vertices, come over here into my tools menu, assign 100% of the weight, assign the strength of that weight to 1, and now when I paint, what will happen is as I cover over the vertexes, they will turn red. Now if I left it like this, what this means is that this tip is completely hot and will spin with the actual bone, and this group down here is completely cold and won't move at all. And as it is right now, I've weight painted to a group called group, so it's not assigned to the actual bone. I'm going to select these vertexes and I'm going to paint them red. So now it's completely red, and if I was to spin the prop again, come out of weight paint mode, select the spinner prop bone because it is controlling these two bones, rotate on the y-axis. I've got one prop spinning, the other prop isn't spinning because the vertex group has not been renamed to the actual bone name. So I need to select the object, go back into the object data, hold down Control and click on the group name and change that to BIP prop right. Now that everything is assigned, it's assigned to the BIP prop right, it's been weight painted to the bone, and it has its armature modifier, almost, armature 1. Now that it's assigned and I rotate that bone on the y-axis, the whole thing moves. Now if I select the bone here and rotate on the y-axis, I can change the rotate on the x-axis rather, rotate on the x, I can change the pitch of the actual prop and it becomes a dynamic prop. Okay, so that's got that done, and all I have to do now is go through and do the same thing for the rest of the bones. Now remember I said that when I painted the aircraft, what I did is I painted it so that each color would represent a particular bone. So the red here is all going to be assigned to the fuselage bone because it's going to move on the fuselage bone itself. It's the parent bone, and most of the aircraft is painted to, is going to be painted to it. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to add BIP fuselage. Give it an armature 1. Go back here into edit mode, select all the vertices and assign it 100%. I'm going to come into the wing now, do the same thing for that. Add BIP fuselage. Assign 100% to that. Come back into the modifier tab at the armature. Okay, so if I grab that bip fuse bone now, the spinner, the prop, this part and the wing should move with the bone. Okay, now just to show you what happens if you name something wrong. So here we have the fin. It's going to be part of the fuselage. And I'm going to misspell. Go into edit mode, select the entire surface, assign it 100%, come back here, give it a modifier bone, modifier to the armature, assign the armature. Now this should move with the fuselage bone, but if I select it in pose mode and move it, it doesn't move. And the reason for that is because I misspelt the vertex group by putting a different case for the actual bone, right? Wrong armature. This one. Bip fuselage is all lowercase. In my case here, what I did is I come out of edit mode. I made it a mixed case. To fix that, all I have to do is come back in here now and rename that vertex group properly. I don't have to reassign weights because it's controlled by the actual name. So if I come in here now and I grab that bone in pose mode, that fin is going to move with the aircraft now. Okay, now that I've got that done, what I'm going to do is going to time lapse and finish setting up the vertex groups and the armature. Okay, what happened there? I've got the retract working. Works good. Pivots on the place where I want it to pivot. Goes up into the wing properly. Like so. But why didn't the wheel move? Well, the reason why the wheel didn't move is simply due to the fact that I haven't parented the bone properly to the correct bone. So what I have to do now is go into edit mode on that particular bone and reset the parent. Okay, so instead of going to the bip fuselage, what I want it to do is I want it to go to the retract left. Okay, now I've got that relationship, the parent connection line from the retract down to the wheel, and if I go back into the edit mode, it will move up into the wing the way it's supposed to. Okay, so now I want to go into pose mode and remove that animation. And I'm going to select that bone and come here to pose on the menu, clear, transform all, and it'll pop back down into the proper place. Okay, so rotate on the Y, up it goes up into the wing, perfect. let's talk about the canopy. Okay, so I've put it on the hinge point so that it can rotate the way I want it to, or I can use the bone to pull it back. But some people would like to have this thing sitting on a shape key. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to select all. Before I do that, I'm going to stay in object mode. I'm going to come in here to the object data property panel. In here, I'm going to click the plus sign twice and add two shapes. The base shape, which is the canopy in its closed position, and the second key I'm going to rename to canopy open. I'm going to move the slider all the way to the right to 1. I'm going to come into edit mode and ensure that I have all the vertices selected, and then I'm going to pull it back. Okay, so I moved it straight back on the y-axis. So now when I use my value slider, the canopy opens and closes. That's ShapeKeys, a quick lesson on ShapeKeys in a nutshell. Okay, let's finish off getting this plane rigged up. Now that the aircraft has been properly set up, if I should grab a hold of the root bone in pose mode and move the aircraft, the whole aircraft will move. I can go through and I can check my rotations. That doesn't look right. Rotate on the Z-axis. Thank you. Give me a perfectly straight line. And you can see that the pivot points are in their proper place. Rotate on the X. Rotate on the Z. Now, if I happen to miss a vertex or two, I'm going to remove the weight on those two particular vertexes. If I come in and I rotate the wheel, now what should happen is those two vertexes should stay pretty much in place. And if I pull on that, you can see that it's leaving them behind. If I was to compile this model as it is now and take it into Source FilmMaker, when I load this model into Source FilmMaker and check my bones, I will find that I have a Blender implicit bone. And what that bone is any vertex that is not assigned weight to a proper bone will be assigned to that Blender implicit bone. So it's a good way of checking your model when you get it into Source FilmMaker. Let's pull that back there, grab that wheel, grab the entire thing and reassign it to the tail wheel bone. Now it's just a matter of going through and checking all the bones to make sure that they rotate the proper way. Normally I would have wheel wells so that those would just go right up in there, and what you want to do with retracts is make sure that the wheel doesn't poke through on the upper side of the wing. If it does, then what you have to do is you have to reassign or readjust the actual size of the wing, or create an animation for your user so that what will happen is the wheel will actually fall back down into the wing so that it's hidden by the wing. This plane is ready for export. So anyway, that is how you assign the various control groups of an aircraft to their particular bones. So next we're going to export this into DMX files, write a QC, and get it into Source Filmmaker. So get ready for part 4, and we'll see you then. With that, I say Private Jack out.